Hey everybody, it's Trags, Mike Petralia back with the latest installment of the Jungle Roar podcast on the CLNS Media Network, powered by our good friends at Prize Picks and the Game Time app. Joining me today on this Jungle Roar podcast episode is the one and only Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com. Does a tremendous job covering all things Cincinnati Bengals. He has a great one-on-one with new linebackers coach Mike Hodges, and I want to get to that in a little bit. But first of all, Butch, everybody's talking about the draft coming up next Thursday and what the Bengals will do in terms of shoring up the places that need to be shored up. Every team is in the same position. They use the draft to kind of complement what they've been able to do so far in free agency, trades, and whatnot. When you look at this draft, the talent available, especially we'll focus right now on the first round. There's a lot of defensive pieces in that first round that are projected. It's a very deep class defensively, especially on the defensive line. A lot of pieces that could help the Bengals. I'm going to give you about 6 names, and I want you to kind of give an idea of which are more likely for one reason or another. I'm going to give you 3 defensive edges. Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M. Mike Green, Marshall, very, very talented athlete. And the other edge that I want to go over is Michael Williams out of Georgia. Then there are 2 tackles there's a linebacker, Geoff Campbell out of Alabama, who I think is intriguing on a number of different levels because of his athleticism. There's a safety, and not a lot of people have talked about this, but Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina. And then there is an offensive guard, Tyler Booker, out of Alabama. Of those names, which couple intrigue you the most?
Well, I have talked about the South Carolina safety. To me, he's an AFC North safety. He's a great fit for this team. You talk about Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore. This could be their Kyle Hamilton. It would be a step in the AFC North arms race on the other side of the ball. Big guy, can do a lot of different things. That's the first name that strikes me. The other thing is, as you know, Trags, this team does historically not take safeties in the first round. And, I think the last first round safety was Darrell Williams, who was all the way down at the end of the first round in 1992. Those edges are interesting. If you like college production, you probably go with Williams from Georgia, right? If you like physique, you would go with Stewart from A&M, And if you like speed, just flat out speed, you'd go with Green from Marshall. So there's a little bit for everybody there. And I think, it comes to, usually at this point, what do you tolerate? As they say, Duke Tobin talked about that at the combine. Green, for example, not particularly big. Do you live with that? And of course, we're kind of in the dark here, Trags. It's not like It's not like the last couple of years was Lou Anarumo was set and you knew what the dimensions of his edges were. You knew what the dimensions of his street techniques were. We really don't know that because Al Golden is running the ship on defense. What does he want? What are his specifications? So I think really we can sit here and say this and that.
Right.
85 big boards out there. And, to be honest with you, we'll have a better idea. I think they think Al Golden's going to make it into his 3rd, 4th, 5th year. That's why they hired him. I think they feel like he's going to be a big impact. Then you get a better idea, I think. But right now, go ahead.
No, I just think with Al Golden, his experience at linebacker, Mike Hodges, as again we'll talk about in a few moments, being the new linebackers coach, the name that intrigues me is Geoff Campbell because of his athleticism and because of the lack of depth. I think the upper quality or the upper impact depth in the linebacker room. You have Logan Wilson, certainly with Jermaine Pratt. There's uncertainty there. He has been public in his demand for a trade from the Bengals. And then you have a couple of nice role players behind him who also are special teams players. Keem Davis Gaither, he's gone. You've got to fill that void as well. But I just think in terms of what they haven't been able to do the last couple of years, and that's close in space and tackle, something they did very well in 21 and 22. Yeah. He is an intriguing candidate. He's out of Alabama, and there's something, Butch, and you know this, Alabama linebackers seem to always hit it big.
And this guy's got some rush ability, right? He can play on the edge a little bit. He's got some speed, so it's kind of interesting that way. You know, I guess every Cincy school kid knows the last linebacker the Bengals drafted in the first round, I guess, was Keith Rivers, right, in 2008.
Yes, and they don't do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and you know, they don't draft safeties, they don't draft linebackers, and they don't high safeties, linebackers, and guards in the past. That's what history would tell you. Maybe 2025 is different because you have a new defensive coordinator and because you have, different needs on offense. I mean, you've done everything. You've done everything to you've re-signed your two major guys to contracts. You re-signed Gesicki, who I think talk about Jamal.
Not a lot of people, not enough people have talked about how
huge.
Important that is.
It's 1A. That's a 1A signing, recently.
Well, and not only that, Butch, but I forget who it was that pointed this out. It may have been you, as a matter of fact. They don't sign multiple year contracts to tight ends very often. And I think they've done 1 year deals the last 3 or 4 seasons. Right. To sign him to a 3-year contract is an indication that Joe Burrow and he are on the same page, and that's a page that's going to be very critical in the book the Bengals are trying to write in 2025.
So you've done everything but attack guard, right? So maybe you do take a guard in the first round because that's where you are. I don't, it depends what their board looks like.
Well, and I'm going to ask you right now, and the Bengals and that front office as well as anybody. Are they a franchise? Are they an organization that sticks strictly to the board, meaning without question, take the highest rated player they have on the big board in the first round? Different teams have different approaches to this, but how do the Bengals view their players on the big board in the first round, and how might that impact who they select?
Yeah, I think the last, since Duke's been in the chair, I think they have stuck to their board more often than not. They've gone with that best player. And I think the tiebreaker hasn't been position really. It's been size. I think the bigger the guy, the better, I just feel like that's the more, whether we're talking about the defensive line, the offensive line, whatever. I think the bigger the guy, with the higher the pick. And I think that's to me, that the last 5 years or so, the last 7 to 8 years, that's the way that's what seems to be to me. They, the bigger the guy, the higher the pick.
Amarius Mims would certainly fit that bill. And I think Amarius Mims, 1 year, obviously in the books, and that's it. He's only, I would figure, going to get better heading into his critical second year in the National Football League. I think he had a terrific rookie year as a first-round pick last year, don't you?
Oh, I agree. I mean, he was rolled out against some pretty top flight guys. I mean, I don't think he gave up a sack to the big three, right? Garrett, Watt, and thinking of, I lost track of somebody else there, but certainly to Watt and Garrett, he didn't give up sacks. I guess those were those. I guess he played them in 3 games, I guess, and didn't give up a sack. Now, obviously, he gave up some hits. I mean, it didn't look pretty, but my God, at times. But you also remember he played hurt. He showed he could play hurt. He shut down those guys. I mean, he's one of these guys. I'm not going to let you get to the quarterback. I don't care what it looks like. I agree, Trags. I think it's one of the best rookie years we've had possibly in this century by a first-round pick.
Well, and the thing that impresses me about Amarius Mims is the fact that he moved his feet. So for a big man, He moved his feet very well, and that's why he was able to push people to the outside and give Joe Burrow a chance to step up, or at least step into that space that was created by Amarius pushing his guy out onto the perimeter.
And remember, he's played. He hasn't played a hell of a lot of ball. I mean, he's just going to get better and better because I think we said this late in the year. He played more snaps in the NFL than he had in college.
That is a remarkable statistic for a rookie.
So he's just getting better and better, Trags. I mean, he's got all pro written all over him, and he's talking about that. He says the Pro Bowl's a goal.
All right, he is Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com. Appreciate him taking some time out of a very busy couple of weeks as we head up to the April 24th NFL Draft. Want to tell you about Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Springtime is here and baseball season officially underway. Butch, your Carmine Hoes, they've had hit and miss success over the first week or so.
Had to struggle to get out of Chicago with winning a game. I mean,
just one win. Yeah.
I mean, they almost wasted a no-hit effort by Crochet.
Garrett Crochet, as a matter of fact. Well, don't miss your chance to add your favorite players, like a Garrett Crochet from the Diamond, in your Prize Picks lineups, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead up to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download that app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Back with Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com. How busy is this time of year for you, Butch?
Pretty busy, Trags, as you well know. Listen, I don't know who's busier than you. You're doing the Reds. I mean, you're doing the Reds, too. I don't know how you're doing it. I remember back in 1991 taking a break during the NFL draft, and Jack Brennan said, hey, come on out here. We were at Riverfront, and we came out and we watched a couple of innings to take a break from the draft. We watched a couple of innings of the Reds.
Is that right?
In 91, yeah. I mean, so I don't know how you're doing it, man. You're unbelievable. But, yeah, it's busy. But, I shake my head because 95% of this stuff is written in futility.
Well, that is so true, but we don't talk about that enough. It is,
I like to focus on what's happened in the past and maybe in the recent past, because I think that gives you a little bit of a roadmap to maybe go back to. So I might not be like Dana and you guys and Mo and you guys are so into this. You guys are so into the prospects. I can't even. You guys have so much knowledge of the prospects. I couldn't even begin to discuss it. You guys get great knowledge of that, and I'm not as good on that. But hopefully I can try to put it in a context of the last 7-8 years.
Well, that's exactly right, and I think that's something what you do so very well. Something else I want to ask you about, because this is kind of an unusual draft for the Bengals in that they only have 6 picks. Last year they had 10 picks. They used all 10. This year they have 6. And that's one fewer than the 7 rounds of the NFL draft. Do you think the Bengals are going to try to add a pick somewhere by trading back or moving around inside the first couple of rounds?
I don't know if they would. I would. And I'm going to tease tomorrow's Bengals.com media market.
Please do.
Where we may have a possible trade, which is always a rarity in media mock draft history. But remember those names you just rattled off, like 5 names, right?
Yes,
well,
I did.
What if they get to 17 and they're all there? I mean, you'd like to pick. Would you like to pick up an extra 3rd rounder? Would you like to pick up an extra 4th rounder?
I think they would.
And this is with you talked. You rattled off 5 pretty good names. You didn't even say Walter Nolan.
No, I did not. And
right?
You know what, Butch?
Yeah.
I have a check mark next to Walter Nolan, but I didn't mention him because I'm going off Dane Brugler's big board. For those not familiar, and I don't know who follows the draft who's not familiar with the beast on The Athletic, and Dane Brugler does an amazing job.
Yes, he does.
He has Walter Nolan ranked 31st. By the way, 3 spots ahead of Shedeur Sanders, which we can talk about that at another point in time. Yeah. But Walter Nolan, he has him rated as the 4th overall, 4th best defensive tackle in the 1st round.
Yeah. So what if 3 ahead of him go? Where did the Bengals have him ranked? My only point is there might be 4 or 5 guys there that, then you take the opportunity to trade down, knowing you have access to that, but you're going to have access to one of those guys still. But it's tough to, as they say, you need a partner.
You do.
I don't know. I mean, I found somebody to dance with me, but only from an exercise standpoint. But I think in the real world, it's tough. It's going to be tough to trade back there. And I mean, you could trade, you could trade far enough out, just far enough out to not get a good player. You got to be
maybe one of those teams between, let's say, the LA Rams at 26 and the Philadelphia Eagles at 32 has their sights set on a player at 17 that they think is going to be gone and they really want him. That's where
you're going to get at 26, though. You might not get those 5 guys may be gone.
All 5 of them. Well, that's a gamble you take, but it's a gamble you take.
Right.
If you feel getting an additional draft pick or 2, but probably just one.
I mean, it's not a gamble if you get to 15 and you say, you know what? Everybody here is the same guy. If you get to 15, then it's not a gamble.
Right, because your attitude is we're going to get somebody that can come in and play right away, and we're going to get an extra draft pick out of it. To me, here's the priority in the first 2, definitely the 1st round, and really the first 2 days of the draft, the first 3 rounds. You need to get players who can come in right away and contribute. They cannot sit on the sideline. They can't take a red shirt year in their rookie year in the NFL. The Bengals are in a position, especially on defense, where they need guys to come in and contribute right away.
I think, to me, Trags, it's I don't care what position it is. That guy's got to be able to come in and help right now. And,
yes.
You know what I mean? So, but here's the thing. If there's a guy, there were discussions like this, go back to 2006. And, in the 2nd round, Whitworth was clearly the best player on the board, but they already had a left tackle who they were going to extend in Levi Jones. But they said, well, you can't have enough good players. And they stacked it. People were uninspired with that Whitworth pick because, well, geez, you already got a left tackle. Well, it turned out, so when you never hurt yourself when you go for the best player.
I think that attitude has changed amongst those who follow the draft, whether they're fans, whether they're scouts, whether they're football executives in the league. You can never have too many good players. And I don't think just because you have a particular starter at a position doesn't mean you don't take another player, with one exception. I think the quarterback. You don't take a high-ranking quarterback that when you can build depth at other spots. Ideally, you don't want to depend on depth at quarterback. It's great to have a backup quarterback and a competent backup, but at tackles where you need a couple and you need 2 in reserve, 3 in reserve to get you through the course of a grueling 17, soon to be 18 game NFL season, you need depth there. You need depth along the defensive and offensive lines. You need depth everywhere.
I mean, what happens if you trade back to 26 and one of those tackles is slid? Banks, maybe Banks slides. Who knows? I mean, probably not. But
I'm curious to see, Butch, whether or not they have a first-round grade on an offensive guard. I presume they do on somebody like a Kelvin Banks out of Texas, like you just mentioned, or Tyler Booker out of Alabama.
I would love to know how many first-round grades they've given because, some years it's 12.
Some people say, there's really, truly
right.
only about 15 first-round grades in this.
And that would give you a better. That would give you a better handle on if you know how many. Of course, they wouldn't do this because it gives you tools to the kingdom, but keys to the kingdom. But if they've only that would tell you if they would trade. How far back they'd be willing to go. I think the last time they did it right was 2012 when they were at 21 and they went to 27 to get Zeitler. So that's 6 spots, So I mean, would they go more than 6 spots?
I just think with the Bengals only possessing 6 picks right now, as we sit here on a Monday, about 12 days before the NFL draft, I think one of the priorities not only has to be getting guys who contribute right away, especially on defense, but adding a pick or two in the draft. Talking with Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com. I want to tell you about Game Time, the best place online to get tickets for all sorts of events. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks is a feature where curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And Butch, I'll tell you one thing about a Game Time that I love. I want to know what it's going to look like from the seat I'm in. And that's where Seat Views has you covered. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, use that code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem that code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Back with Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com. All right, before we get to your Q&A, a fascinating one with Mike Hodges, the new linebackers coach under Al Golden on the Bengals defense. I want to ask you about the rest of the draft and how you think the Bengals are going to approach it in terms of building depth on defense, where you think perhaps on defense they need to add. Is it at all 3 levels, or is there one particular position where you think they're going to focus on more than any other?
Well, after the first round, because I think after the first round, you got to be thinking defensive line, either an edge or a tackle. But beyond that, beyond the rest of the rounds 2 through 7, I would think linebackers got to be a priority. They haven't drafted a linebacker in 5 years, so I got to believe that's a priority. One of the priorities, in the draft is a linebacker, just because they haven't done it in a while and the room's a little thin. And then beyond that, I think I really think they're really if they need anything at corner, maybe you go get a veteran, but I think they're pretty set at corner. I think they're really,
I do too. I don't see that as a pressing need. I think
I can see a safety. Yeah, I mean, I could see
it's definitely a safety, but not a corner.
Right. No, I could. So I mean, linebacker safety to me beyond the first round, those would be to be defensive positions. Because edge is interesting too. I think they really think Jerry Montgomery, the D-line coach, I think they think he's going to get something out of Osai and Murphy. And I think Osai had a really good year last year. I think he's a guy that's always about to break out as long as he's healthy. And Murphy, I think they feel like, everybody's saying, oh, we got to have a first-round edge. You got a first-round edge from 2 years ago who you would still, who you're banking on to improve under a new position coach.
Yeah, and I'm curious from your perspective, how much of a difference can a new position coach make?
Oh, I think it can be. I think it can be everything. I mean, you go back. I just look at a guy like Mike Zimmer back in '08. Just go back, look in history, and how he turned around. He had basically the same guys that were there in '08, and he turned them into '09. He had them for a year and turned them around. I think a guy like Murphy, who is he's a perfect guy. Jerry Montgomery has a track record of getting his players to produce. And a guy like Murphy, I talked to him the other day, and he just, after 2 years in the game, he's got a better idea for his body. And I think he just needs some confidence. He just needs a jolt of confidence. And this is no shot against Marion Hobby, who's a fine coach in his own right. But
Sure.
just a change. I think it can really help a guy like Murphy, who's obviously got all the tools. He's just looking for some confidence. He's just looking for something to hang on to, and maybe he gets. I think there's a chance that Jerry, a good chance that Jerry and Al can give that to him, because just a kind of a different look at it.
So that's why we're having you on, Butch, because that insight right there is pretty fascinating. And I love the point that you made about Mike Zimmer from '08 to '09, what he was able to do when he got on the scene and kind of bring out the best in some of the defensive players that he had his hands on. Now, because we're kind of under the gun here, I want to talk about your Q&A with new Bengals linebacker coach Mike Hodges, and I want to read this because I think Bengal fans will love this quote. "We're not going to be a carbon copy of anything that any one of us has done anywhere else. We've built this thing together." Yeah. And there's a reason that's your first quote in the story on Bengals.com. What did you take from that quote, and what did you take from your conversation with the new Bengals linebacker coach?
Well, thanks for noting that, Trags. And if you need more time for this, I'll be more than happy to stay on for however long you need me. Though that quote was, I thought, important, but also the quote where he said, when he was talking about a linebacker in the draft, he said, "I'm looking for a guy who has the best linebacker and will fit the scheme to him," which I found that interesting as well. I just got the sense from talking to Hodges that this is a whole new defense. It's a different defense because Al is obviously, remaking it. And now how much is he remaking it? How much difference is there? Then, I'm sure he has elements of what Lou had because he worked under Lou for 2 years. But, sure. I mean, it sounds like, he's taken input from Mike. He's taken input from Jerry, who have been in different places around the league. He's taken input from Sean Desai, who was with Philly as a D coordinator. So it just sounds like it's going to kind of be a melting pot of this staff. And obviously Charles Burks and Jordan Kovacs, the corners coach and safeties coach respectively, they've got stuff that they can add to, maybe from this, what Lou was doing, or maybe other stuff that they've seen. So it sounded to me after talking to Mike that this is it's a new look defense.
I think it is fascinating to hear that they are willing to rebuild this defense with the pieces that are already in place. It sounds great to say that, but then actually applying it and going through the actual process of carrying that out, those can be two different things, Butch.
Yeah, you look, Mike worked under Dennis Allen in New Orleans, so you got that school. You've got Jerry Montgomery was broke in under Don Capers, and worked under different guys in Green Bay. So he comes from a different. So do you have enough time to meld all this stuff together? Because remember, one of the criticisms was, last couple of years they're doing too much, So it sounds like, if anything, Al wants to make it black and white clear. Here we are, no gray area. So maybe that's just built into the defense. I don't know. We'll see. It's hard to, we're talking right now, and Mike would tell you this, it's just on paper right now. They haven't even spent time with the players yet. So they're a long way getting this defense off the ground, the scheme anyway.
Can I read another favorite quote of mine in your conversation with him?
Please do.
I can teach you our cover four. I can teach my wife our cover four, but I have to be able to connect with everybody. And I think that's going to be a key component. I think we'll excel at that. We just haven't had that opportunity yet. That's what we were just alluding to, that it's one thing to talk about all of this,
Right.
but you have to teach the process. You have to teach the mechanics of what you want and the execution of what you want them to do. Then they have to go out and do it.
Yeah, and I think I hate to call him Hodgie, but it's when Ken Hodge,
Yep.
Bruins, a great Bruins legend was Hodgie. I have to call anybody named Hodge or Hodgie. Hodges. But I think that Hodges came up as a player who was a pro prospect, a very good pro prospect. Joey Bozay can tell you about him. That's his best friend in the business. Coming out of A&M, and he got hurt. He got badly hurt. And his career was basically done. Came up the hard way. Jerry Montgomery was a guy, the new defensive line coach. He was playing, he's playing indoor football and coaching high school. And these guys are players. These guys are football players, and they've got a, if you talk to Hodges, very easy guy, relatable. Same with Jerry, and you can tell how they can relate to players. They're good at doing that, and I think Zach kept in touch with Mike down through the years because they have the A&M connection, and I think Zach sees that in Hodges, and that he's a guy who can relate to players. And even Logan Wilson said this when he was talking about Al when the Bengals hired Al. Al is a guy that he was the kind of guy who would ask you about your kids, ask about your family, kind of, and Hodges is that kind of guy too. Very telling interview when I talked to Zach Baum at the Super Bowl, he was playing for the Eagles, had played for the Saints, was drafted and developed when Mike was there. Still have a relationship with the guy, and there was no bitterness from Bond's part that he didn't get any time in New Orleans and he got his shot in Philly, and yet they seem to have a relationship. So, I think that tells you a little bit about Hodges.
Yeah, great Q&A that Geoff Hobson did with the new linebackers coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, Mike Hodges. Be sure to check that out. The conversation on Bengals.com. Before I let you go, and this is kind of back to the draft out of left field, I'm curious, do you think the Bengals are going to seriously consider taking a running back in the first 3 to 4 rounds of this draft?
Boy, I'd be stunned, wouldn't it?
I would be too,
yeah.
But look, it's Zach Taylor, and he loves his offense, and he wants to give Joe Burrow every possible weapon. They have Chase Brown. You have Zach Moss coming back from injury. Samaje Perine is back on the roster. I don't see it, but, I mean, I don't think there's going to be an Ashton Genty available to the Bengals. And so if a player like that, of that ilk, is off the board, it would be, with so many other needs on the other side of the ball, I couldn't see them taking a running back.
Hard for me to see them pass on a linebacker. Hard to see them pass on a linebacker and a safety for a running back. A position that Justin Hill has showed that he can develop, and Justin Hill emerging into a very fine, position coach in this league, well regarded, who gets his guys to be productive. I think that it's a lot. I think if they do anything on offense, I would think it would be a wide receiver. I would think, if they other than a guard. I mean, I think,
And this isn't a particularly high or deep draft in terms of wide receivers, especially in the first 2 rounds or so.
Right. I just don't. But I think there's so many other positions. I could see them taking 2 linebackers or 2 guards rather than taking a running back. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I keep reading about the Bengals on a running back, and
that's why I asked. That's exactly why I asked, because I
don't know where. I don't know. That would not be their MO, right?
No, it would not. All right. Lots of great stuff, as I've just highlighted up on Bengals.com from the one and only Geoff Hobson. Butch, thank you very much for joining me. Now I'm going to let you get back to doing some research on your Boston Red Sox and see if they can turn things around. They've dropped 5 of 7. I think that's
got to hit in scoring position, Trags. I mean,
you do.
It's got to get warm, man. It's brutal everywhere they've been. It's been like freezing, but that's no excuse. But quit working so hard, will you? You're making us look all bad. So
it's what I do. I love my work.
And you do it well. Hey, thank you for the thanks for the shout out for the Hodges Q&A. Really,
it's a terrific Q&A. I highly recommend everybody consuming this, whether it's listening or watching it on our YouTube channel. Please do check out Butch's work on Bengals.com. All right, he is Geoff Hobson. My name is Mike Petralia Trags. Want to thank everybody for downloading this episode of the Jungle Roar podcast. It's been powered by our good friends at Prize Picks and the Game Time app. And until next week, you know how it goes. Keep that jungle roaring.